Tonight, the pushback on Donald Trump's massive presidential overhaul. How many new troops are being deployed to the U.S.-Mexico border? Cuts to federal diversity programs.
I have one message for President Trump. I'll see you in court.
And the pending legal challenges to the new policies. Fighting spirit.
If they're not going to abide by our trade agreements, then neither are we.
Targeting American liquor in the battle plan to retaliate against U.S. tariffs.
They will feel the pain.
What Canadian distillers are saying. Also, why Amazon is saying au revoir to its operations in Quebec. Plus,
that beautiful child may not be there the next day.
A grieving family's warning about sextortion. And cheering on a critical message about mental health.
When I talk with my family, I feel good and I feel like I can open up.
The young basketball fans holding court with the next generation of Raptors.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. Donald Trump is continuing his rapid push to reshape America with a vision sharply different from that of his predecessor. Again today, dramatic and sweeping changes from immigration to ending diversity programs. Changes that are already creating ripple effects here. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon explains.
Donald Trump flexing his presidential powers, targeting his own government, placing all federal employees in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles on paid leave. It's not clear how many workers it affects, but they could be reassigned or laid off. Overturning long-standing equity policies first signed by President Lyndon Johnson during the Civil Rights era.
It is nothing but an effort to repeal the progress that this nation has made over the last 60 years.
It's no surprise Trump campaigned on dismantling diversity programs, claiming it divides Americans by race.
We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
After declaring a national emergency at the southern border, Trump's deploying up to 1,500 active duty troops there, along with planes and helicopters, part of his immigration crackdown. Flights of approved refugees to resettle in the U.S., including 1,600 Afghans, have been canceled as mass deportations of undocumented immigrants in America gear up.
We're concentrating on the worst first. And just yesterday, in the last 24 hours, ICE arrested over 308 serious criminals.
The president who just pardoned convicted criminals, 1,500 Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol, now hailed as heroes. Far-right leader Enrique Tarrio of the Proud Boys freed, along with those who beat police with pipes and batons. And up on Capitol Hill 4 years later, Oath Keepers founder Stewart Rhodes, convicted of plotting the attack, says he has no regrets.
My actions? No.
You just blanket pardon all of them without consequence? I think that sends a horrible message to our law enforcement officers.
Polls show a majority of Americans are against these pardons. Despite the backlash, talks are underway for the president to host some of those pardoned criminals at the White House. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. On Friday, Trump will make his first trip since the start of his second term. He'll be in California, where tonight an explosive new wildfire is raging out of control.
Mandatory evacuation order.
More than 50,000 people are under evacuation orders or warnings tonight. The fire, fanned by high winds, ignited in the hills north of Los Angeles this morning and has now spread to an area covering more than 30,000 square kilometers. Another devastating blow in an area where two other major fires, including the Palisades fire, continue to smolder. A heated debate has reignited after Donald Trump's decision to overturn Biden-era protections for individuals who identify as neither male nor female. CTV's Judy Trin on the impact of that debate in Canada.
The official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
The president's executive order signals first steps in rolling back transgender rights and inclusive policies. It's enough for this dual citizen to consider moving her family back to Ontario from Minnesota.
I have a non-binary child, and I have a lot of kids with special needs whose services, I'm afraid, will be cut.
Since Donald Trump's election, this immigration law firm has been fielding an average of 50 calls a day from Americans asking about asylum for their LGBTQ2S+ families.
A lot of people are worried that protections that were, hard won recently are being ripped away.
Refugee claims from Americans are usually not approved because the federal government doesn't consider the country unsafe.
To suggest that the U.S. is not a safe space for trans people, for the LGBT community, I think is a bit of a bridge too far.
Gemma Hickey will be flying straight into the storm when they land in Seattle. On their passport, Hickey's sex is listed as X. Will U.S. Customs recognize it?
I don't know what to expect when I go to the U.S. and if I will get passed or if I'll get detained or what. I don't know what's happening.
Back at home, attitudes among some Canadian leaders align with the U.S.
I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Certainly an indication of where he intends to go should he form government. And I guess he sees that, or he thinks that it's working for the U.S.
Even as Trump's executive orders generate despair on both sides of the border, U.S. advocates are determined to fight his gender policies in court. Omar.
Judy, thanks. As Canada edges closer to Trump's February 1st tariff threat, Ontario and BC are promising to retaliate by targeting American alcohol. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson distills the details.
You need it to go through that, it's called a vodka column.
From vodka columns to fermenters, Gordon Glanz has distilling down to a science.
The golden age of distilling, I would say, in BC.
We're in it right now.
We're in it right now.
And at Vancouver's Odd Society Spirits, everything's local.
Our latest gin is a strawberry gin. We get strawberries from the Fraser Valley and infuse them in our regular gin. It's become very popular.
Local liquor options could soon be thrust into the spirit spotlight if the U.S. goes ahead with Donald Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. Because in retaliation, Ontario and BC are now threatening to pull American booze off the shelves at government liquor stores.
We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. They will feel the pain.
We have trade agreements with the Americans that we have to treat their products like our own. But if they're not going to abide by our trade agreements, then neither are we.
BC's premier is suggesting now is the time to think local, not only in terms of eating and drinking, but also shopping, even vacationing. Anything that will send a strong message south.
Vancouverites we spoke to are split on how to deal with the threat.
I think we really need to retaliate. I think the whole idea is absolutely ridiculous. It's just, and Trump doesn't understand it. He doesn't realize how seriously that's going to hurt the Americans.
The better strategy is to realize that America is 10 times our size economically, and we have to work with them. So rather than, we'll get you back, we actually make an effort to work with them.
At Odd Society Spirits, the potential boost in business is bittersweet.
In some ways it would be good for us, but you really don't want to hope that it's going to come to this crazy impasse.
Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, tariffs and how to respond to them dominated the agenda at a meeting between the premiers and the prime minister today as the race to replace Justin Trudeau widened and a frontrunner promised to abandon a key policy the Liberals once championed. CTV's Rachel Aiello explains.
We are not the enemy.
Bracing to be hit with 25% import tariffs as soon as February 1st, today Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made good on his promise to meet weekly with premiers once U.S. President Donald Trump took office. The virtual meeting included talk of reducing interprovincial trade barriers to ease some economic pressure at home, as well as further conversation about bolstering border measures. Officials also shared intel on the call about their latest conversations with Americans. The tariff threat has one premier contemplating an early election.
These tariffs are coming. I need a mandate, and I will spend tens of billions of dollars to protect people's jobs.
Another is calling for cooler heads.
I work together to de-escalate the conversation.
As federal and provincial governments ready their response plans, opposition party leaders offered their own retaliatory suggestions.
Donald Trump only understands strength. We need to show strength.
We would go to the grassroots American economic interests that are on our side.
Trump's tariff threat also continues to play into the Liberal leadership race, with Chrystia Freeland now promising to scrap Canada's capital gains tax hike. And the latest contender to enter the ring, former Liberal MP Ruby Dalla, pitching her negotiation approach on CTV's Your Morning.
I would deal with it with a velvet glove and an iron fist.
As Trump downplays reports that he's dangling tariffs to trigger an early renegotiation of the new NAFTA, one former Canadian ambassador to the U.S. cautioned today that reopening the trilateral trade pact before 2026 wouldn't be in Canada's interest. Omar?
All right, Rachel, thank you. A surprising announcement from Amazon today. The online retail giant shutting down all of its warehouses in Quebec and laying off hundreds of workers. CTV's Kelly Gregg has the reaction and reasons why.
Early this morning, Amazon delivered the news.
We just got a news. They just told us that we are closing all the facilities.
More than 1,700 employees will lose their jobs in 7 Quebec operation sites.
Some of them, they're like students here. Some of them, they are part-time, and that was their only income.
In a statement, Amazon says this decision wasn't made lightly, and we're offering impacted employees a package that includes up to 14 weeks' pay after facilities close and transitional benefits like job placement resources. It denies the move has to do with the unionization of 300 Quebec employees last May. But some workers aren't buying it.
My guess is because they are unionized and they are trying to unionize in Laval.
The head of the CSN union calls it an outrage, saying it's Amazon's way of sending a message to all its workers.
I think they're trying to intimidate workers, Amazon workers in the rest of Canada, and it's a slap in the face for all workers.
Retail strategists point out the Quebec union was a first.
There's a lot of correlations that can be done around the timing of the unionization efforts by the Laval warehouse. And this is the only place in Canada where there are such efforts going right now.
And while Premier François Legault says he feels for the workers, the decision is out of his control.
Amazon is a private company, so why do they do that? How do they do that? The answer must be asked to Amazon.
Employees say they were told they'd be out of a job by the end of February. Many don't know what they're going to do and say it's not a lot of time to figure it out. Kelly Gregg, CTV News, Montreal.
Coming up.
I hope he will fulfill his promises that he said that he will do, and I hope there will be peace one day.
What Donald Trump's return means for the Middle East. Plus, Prince Harry's legal victory in a battle with the British tabloids. Donald Trump reinforced his calls for a ceasefire in Ukraine, sending a fresh warning to Russia.
If Vladimir Putin doesn't come to the table to negotiate with you, will you put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely.
Trump threatened on social media to impose high tariffs, taxes, and further sanctions on Russia if a deal is not struck soon, adding to, quote, settle now and stop this ridiculous war. The Kremlin has not responded. Trump also has a role in ensuring the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas holds. CTV's Heather Wright is in Tel Aviv again tonight with a look at how those living in the region are looking at their futures with the new U.S. president in charge.
On a hilltop near the Gaza Strip, Israelis come to see what they can of the enclave roughly a kilometer away.
We are very sad.
Seema Down's cousin was killed fighting in this war. She says her family is hopeful the ceasefire will hold and credits U.S. President Donald Trump for getting it done.
It's very good. He's very good. Trump is very good for Israel.
Trump was quick to take credit for the ceasefire deal, and while the specifics were hashed out by the Biden administration, Trump is being credited by some here with pushing it across the finish line.
I hope he will fulfill his promises that he said that he will do, and I hope there will be peace one day.
In Gaza, some also say it was Trump who ended the war that has killed nearly 47,000 people, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Trump has stopped the war, this woman says. It is good for peace to prevail for everyone, for us, the Jews, and the rest of the world. But questions remain as to whether this fragile ceasefire can transition into a permanent peace.
President Trump can decide.
Kobi Michal is a professor at the University of Tel Aviv and doesn't believe this ceasefire will hold past the first phase, which is set to last 42 days. He believes the United States will unreservedly back Israel, partially to send a message to adversaries like China and Russia.
Look carefully, because this is what you are going to get if you will not follow my vision, if you are not follow the agreements that we will sign between of us.
The ceasefire that went into effect on Sunday was vague by design, kicking the more contentious details like Israeli withdrawal and the future of Hamas down the road to phase 2. And people are watching to see whether Trump will make this a priority for his second term. If Donald Trump wants his peace prize, this man says, then give the Palestinians their rights.
Trump says he is considering a visit to the Middle East, though not immediately. But his team is thinking about visiting Gaza to see the damage in the war-torn enclave and ensure the terms of the ceasefire are upheld. Heather Wright, CTV News, Tel Aviv.
And the UN says aid is flowing smoothly into Gaza. Heavy machinery cleared debris on day 4 of the ceasefire as trucks filled with humanitarian aid and food and health care rolled in. The UN says about 900 trucks entered yesterday. Israel's military says the footage it has released shows tanks and military vehicles leaving Gaza. The IDF says more troops will withdraw once the next group of hostages is freed. Prince Harry has settled a legal fight against tabloids in England.
In a monumental victory today, News UK have admitted that The Sun, the flagship title for Rupert Murdoch's UK media empire, has indeed engaged in illegal practices.
Newspapers issued a rare apology to the Duke of Sussex for phone hacking, surveillance, and the misuse of private information, as well as intruding into the private life of his late mother, Diana. Still ahead, the disguise used by gunmen before an attack caught on camera. Police north of Toronto are searching for a gunman after a brazen daytime shooting that was caught on surveillance video. A man wearing a safety vest and construction helmet is seen talking to a woman outside a home in Markham, Ontario. He pulls out a handgun and fires a shot at her. The gun appears to jam before he fires 2 more shots, then flees in a nearby car. The woman was treated for minor injuries. Police believe the suspect disguised himself as a member of a road crew. A family on Prince Edward Island says federal leaders are playing political football instead of protecting Canadian children after the bill intended to protect them on social media died when Parliament was prorogued. Tonight, they're speaking to CTV's Sarah Plowman about the impact of that decision.
Focused but funny, chatty but a good listener, an old soul, just 17. That was Harry Burke.
I looked up to my brother a lot because, well, he was my best friend.
From eastern Prince Edward Island, Harry dreamed big, to join the military and make Canada better. A message from a stranger changed everything.
This female was supposed to be from Nova Scotia. She wasn't, and it wasn't a female.
They built trust and consent, exchanged intimate images, and then
They wanted a certain amount of money, or they would send these pictures to his family and his friends. But I think the thing that really hit Harry hard was that he had a commanding officer when he had joined the reserves, and they had threatened to send these to the commanding officer.
That night he told his parents. They agreed they'd call police in the morning. Overnight, Harry died by suicide, mere hours after that first message.
Like how simply and how fast it can happen and how dangerous it is.
Nearly 2 years later, they hoped the Online Harms Act would protect others on social media. The proposed bill was shelved when Parliament was prorogued. The Burkes say politicians have been playing politics with children's lives.
It's time to make a decision and work together in unity.
Every day without Harry is hard. His family still cares for his treasured items. More than anything, they want leaders to reflect.
Just imagine when they're having dinner with their children and look across the table and then realize that beautiful child may not be there the next day.
Harry's sister has advice for teenagers.
If someone's contacting you to get pictures and you send them, it doesn't make you dumb or stupid or whatever negative thoughts you're trying to say about yourself. You were just vulnerable, and they knew that, and they took advantage of you.
It may feel like a huge mistake, but she says it doesn't define you. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Bay Fortune, Prince Edward Island.
Still ahead, hoops for mental health. This year's Bell Let's Talk Day is shining a spotlight on youth mental health. CTV's Rahim Ladani with how the Toronto Raptors official minor league affiliate is teaming up with young fans to champion the cause.
With this much energy on a school day, it must be a special occasion. Thousands of students from across the GTA, out of the classroom and in the stands, cheering on the Raptors 905 and the conversation surrounding mental health.
I talk with my family about my mental health, and when I talk with my family, I feel good, and I feel like I can open up.
Sometimes people don't have good mental health, and I feel bad for them, and people have to be nicer to them.
Wearing special blue jerseys with the Bell Let's Talk logo on their shorts, the Raptors 905 have been prioritizing youth mental health for years, and teachers say this annual field trip provides an invaluable lesson.
They need to be part of the community. They need to experience these things for the appreciation. One of these students could aspire to be here one day, and that's the thing we're looking for. And the more chance they get to do this, the more communication they have.
Over the years of Bell Let's Talk Day, students and teachers tell me the stigma surrounding talking about mental health as a broad topic has gone down, but there remains a lot of work to be done when it comes to talking about personal mental health conditions, and that's what schools are trying to improve on.
Students come to school with a lot of accessories, a lot of a heavy heart, and so part of my role is to support students with that social emotional capacity, whether that be someone to talk to, a quiet space, an alternate learning environment.
Excessive screen time and social media continues to play a contributing role towards early onset mental health conditions.
I block out the comments and just tell myself that I'm good enough.
That strong mindset can go a long way. And while schools foster a nurturing environment, students understand they also have to take an active role in improving how they feel.
You just need to have a good schedule. You need to be eating good, having a good sleep routine, trying to sleep early, wake up at a decent time. It can be hard, but with practice, anything is possible.
A winning attitude that's beneficial on and off the court. Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
That's a snapshot of this Wednesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.